I'm thinking from the camera. Ever since we took pictures on the camera, my phone just...
It's not giving what it needs to give anymore.
Yeah, I'm good.
Oh, man. You ready?
Oh, and we matching.
You always trying to copy me.
The
Anyway.
writing and everything. Oh, my gosh.
Shouts to PSA.
Yes. Black-owned business.
100%. What's going on, world? We are back with another episode of The Business of Love. I am yours truly, DJ Dark Kent, a.k.a. Kent King.
I don't like how you tried to be all cute just now when you said that. This is Bria, aka Bree Woo, and yes, another episode of TBOL.
Yeah, man, we appreciate y'all rocking with us thus far, and we enjoy inviting y'all into our living room.
Yes,
and into our business, because we
literally
because we talking about our business, right? But we be talking about our business. But this time around, we're gonna invite you into somebody else's business. We got a submission. Mm-hmm. Someone asked me a question.
Yep.
Someone hit us up and said, "Yo, I love the podcast. You know what I'm saying? My girl kind of put me on, whatever. And then he said, I have a question. He said, I love her very much. She's changed me in ways I could never imagine. She worked her magic on me like no woman has ever done. I won't say her son, but he said, sometimes when she's upset, she goes silent. And sometimes it's for a day. Sometimes it's for a lot of days. I never know the best ways to respond, especially when I'm not sure why she's upset. But then my pride starts to creep up and I start to ignore her too, just because I'm thinking she being extra or being spiteful. So I just want to know how to counter that and get back on her good graces. Thank you for your help in advance. First of all, man, we appreciate you guys, you know what I'm saying, watching. Like, that's number one. Like, we appreciate the fact that we know that people do enjoy our conversation. Because we going to have these conversations regardless. It's just whether or not we going to film them, right?
Right.
Because this is us on the regular. And so that's number one. Number two, we appreciate the bravery of just being able to tell us what's going on, because these are some things that we've done to each other.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like every person has tried to hit that silent treatment button. Yeah. Right? Like, if we being completely honest, I hit you with that yesterday.
We hit each other with that yesterday.
Oh, don't try to act like you.
I promise you, we hit each other with that. No, because I really just didn't feel like talking after that.
You know what I'm talking about?
The Halloween debacle. Matter of fact, we're going to go into that. But no, let's handle our submission.
No, because I want to kind of correlate this to us as well, because I don't want anybody to feel like, you know what I'm saying, what they're saying is a unique situation.
Exactly.
It is a unique situation, but I don't want them to feel like they are the only ones going through this unique situation. These are some things that are kind of just human tendencies, right? And it's not specific to a sign or anything like that, but it's really just about how you best handle difficult times of communication. Yeah. So we could talk about this. Let's tell our story yesterday, right?
As silly as it is, yes.
No, I take it serious. It's not silly, okay? We were sitting here trying to decide what it was that we were going to be for Halloween.
Right.
As a couple. And we had an idea. We started searching. We're doing it late, by the way. And we started realizing shipping difficulties, finding certain things. There was just a lot of like hurdles that I personally was hit with. Because I was the one searching. And so prior to this, though, I had already made the suggestion that we should be this. I'm not going to say it because
it's a surprise.
Right, of course. But I'm like, yo, we should do this. And you like,
I don't want to be that.
And I'm like, but why? Like, and you gave me a reason that I felt was like, okay, come on now. Like, because of what the character did in the show, you didn't want to be this character. And I'm like, yo, come on, man. We just trying to like really kill this. Like, this would be dope. We both look like them. Da, 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 da. And you just was not with it. So we went back to the original idea. And we had kept doing this, whatever the case may be. Then yesterday came, and that was when we actually started getting hit with the difficulties. And I approached the situation again and said, yo, we should be this. And you hit me with the illest. I don't want to be that because I don't feel like being that. I just, and I was like, all right, then, if you ain't got no better ideas, then basically, like, shut the hell up, right? Like, I forgot what I said. But basically, like, if you ain't got no ideas, then I'm done thinking about it. Like, you gonna have to do it.
And then you pulled your sarcastic card and said, when you find something that we should be, let me know, darling. I'll be right on board. That's exactly what you said.
Why do you remember that?
Because it kind of like fried into my brain. I was so annoyed when you said it.
So then that's when the silent treatment came in, because I decided to take it upon myself to put my headphones on. We were both in the office, and I was like, boom. And I felt like I was immature at that moment and trying to tune you out. But my actual desire was to just zone in on something, right, as opposed to being so super zoned in on this. So sometimes when you hit somebody with the silent treatment, it's almost like you don't want to think about it anymore. And the only thing that you know to do is to block the person out, because every time I look at you, I'm thinking about it, right? So I do understand the initial reaction. And I think it's easier to understand because I just did it yesterday, so I know how
it's fresh.
I know how I felt, yo.
Yeah.
But the benefit of that was I did take my time to think about a different way to approach the situation. And then today we spoke and we came to
a great compromise.
A great compromise, I believe. And I feel like if I hadn't taken that time to myself, right, I don't know that I would have come to that conclusion, because I probably would have continued to try to approach the situation in the same way, and I would have just been met with different levels of opposition, which would have put us at odds more. And so, as much as I want to be like, the silent treatment is not the way, I have to really take the time to say that helped in my approach, taking that moment to be able to just. I also came in and I saw you in that new lingerie you had, so that
played a role.
That also changed. Shouts out to Doobie.
Shout out to Mala Mia Intimates,
because that avoided a whole argument. Okay,
that's the hack, ladies.
I walked in the bathroom. I knocked on the door. She was like, She was. I should have known she was up to something because of the pride that she had when telling me to come in. She was like, And I opened the door and I was like, because I'm not going to stop. When I came in, I was going to tell you my idea then. I had taken my time.
Oh, okay.
I had taken my time, thought about it. And I'm like, okay, this is how I'm going to approach it like this. I'm going to say this. She going to say this. I'm going to say that. I had the whole script written out. Then I knocked on the door. He was like, I was like, what's that? It's hilarious how dumb men get when like sex gets turned on.
Yep.
I really asked you like, what's that? But anyway,
let me see the whole thing.
I did say, let me see the whole thing. So shouts out to that Black-owned business again. But again, back to the topic, right? Like, I do want to sit here and be like, maybe it's because I'm a man, right? And this is a man who said this to me, and I want to be like, ladies, the silent treatment is not. But again, being guilty of have just done that, even if it was for a moment, right? I do have to take the time to admit that, like, damn, I was on that side of like, I ain't even talking to her right now. Like, I really felt like that, and it is super detrimental unless you go ahead and actually have that conversation. I've been doing a lot of the talking. So do you want to tell how you felt in that situation?
Yeah, no, I was going to say silent treatment in some ways can be healthy, because the same way you took time to really think about, what we were going to do for Halloween, I took some time and said, what is my reasoning for not wanting to do this? Because you made a very valid point. You're not even giving me a valid reason as to why you don't want to do this costume idea. So I took that silent time to think about why I don't. And I'm like, I don't want to do it because I can't resonate with the character. I don't find it interesting. It's not fun for me. This is really for him. So when we came to that compromise this morning of you asking, so, what are we doing? And we decided what we were doing, I'm like, this is fun for me. This is why I want to do this one. But that time is needed. I would say, though, with silent treatment, it's a slippery slope because if you're silent for too long, the resentment starts to kick in. And if you're not silent long enough, then
you haven't
you're
taken
gonna
the time.
Yeah, you're gonna say things that you probably wouldn't have said if you had more time to yourself.
Got you.
So that would be my 2 cents on that.
I agree that the resentment can definitely start to kick in, and I feel like it's important to avoid moments of resentment, simply because that is like the silent killer in relationships.
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson said that resentment means one of two things. It means either A, you're being bullied, and you are being told to do something that does not resonate with who you are, what you think your purpose is, and that you feel slightly coerced into doing something, or that you have yet to grow up and accept your responsibilities. And I see a multitude of situations in which these can arise. Right? Like when you are, and neither one of us have siblings, but we have friends who have siblings.
Yep.
And I can tell you that some of my friends have resentment towards their siblings because they've had to be responsible for them.
Yep.
And I think that that's very telling about the whole, like, you have to grow up and realize that you are the older sibling, or even if sometimes it's been the younger sibling who's had to be the responsible one. And that's really why the resentment is, there. And so with that situation, with, accepting your responsibility, I don't feel like in a relationship there's too much room for that, right? I don't feel like there's, space to be like, okay, I'm not quite ready to be your man, and that's going to cause me resentment. I think that it's more so the power struggle, the feeling of being coerced into doing something. And I think that sometimes with the silent treatment, the reason why it can cause resentment is like, if I want to talk about something and you don't, you are coercing me into being silent.
Right.
Like, no matter how much I say something to you, you can't pull blood from a stone. So it's like, I'm not going to get no reaction out of you. So it's only going to make me more frustrated.
Yep.
And so that difficulty, that can arise from that is super dangerous to a relationship.
Yeah.
And so I think that letting the silent treatment last for longer than, a certain time period it's hard to swallow. It's a very hard pill to swallow, especially for men. Because if we're ready to talk about something, you almost got to be ready to listen, because we don't deal with our emotions all the time. But I do want to say that, like, again, there's a healthy space for taking space, but too much space can cause that resentment.
Right.
And
so, I mean, to kind of circle it back to the submission. Yeah. What would you say is a good, like, a happy medium?
So, I had shout out to my boy Plan B. He just celebrated, I believe, 9 years.
Beautiful.
Of marriage, right? They just celebrated their 9th wedding anniversary. And we had a great conversation. I got to sit down with him and chop it up again, because we always just exchange great ideas, and two black men just coming together is always a beautiful thing, especially both being entrepreneurs. And so something that I learned from him in his relationship is something that we said we were going to adopt, which is accountability meetings.
Yep.
Right? Every week, set some time to be able to hold each other accountable for something for some air that needs to be cleared.
Right.
So now, some people have a saying that, like, we never go to sleep angry at each other. Shouts out to Scooter Braun. Scooter Braun is Justin Bieber's manager, and he founded, I believe, Ariana Grande and a whole bunch of the Gangnam Style guy and all of these dope artists. He's super, super dope dude. But something just really briefly that I heard him say was that, there's two things he doesn't do. He doesn't go to sleep angry at his wife, and he doesn't go to sleep until he opens all his emails. And I'm like, wow, that shows that's the business of love, right? It's like, you're going to handle business and you're going to handle the business of love. Like, and so for certain people, that accountability meeting is almost every night. right? Like I'm not going to go to sleep upset about something. But for some people, I think it's healthy to just schedule it.
Yep.
To make sure that you have some sort of set time to be like, okay, you don't want to talk about this now? No problem. On Wednesday, though,
we got our meeting.
Yep. That we both committed to make the betterment of this relationship. And so we both have to continue to show up for that.
Yep.
And I think that that's number one. It's so cool. It's super dope. I love the fact that they did that. I'm stealing that. Like we implementing that into our relationship like it was our idea. But I think that it's also super healthy to adopt because it gives everybody the time and space to prepare for that conversation.
Yep.
Not everybody's equipped with the tools to be able to have the difficult convo. So when you do schedule out time for that, to me, that would be a hack to be able to say, hey, look, we know for a fact that on this day, we are going to address this situation. The reason why I feel like that's cool too is because it'll start to help create a pattern of making those conversations easier. At some point, you won't have to schedule the day. You could just be like, look, let's have this convo now.
Yep.
Right. And so that, to me, to answer your question, would be the solution that I would suggest is like, all right, look, if you guys go through moments of having a silent treatment towards one another, schedule some time and commit to the time to always be able to hold each other accountable.
Yeah.
And if on those days there's nothing to hold each other accountable for, then give each other some flowers. Right? Like we do something, we have a kind of a ritual when we take shots where we kind of give each other some flowers, or we give the relationship in and of itself some flowers.
Yeah.
And I think that that's extremely healthy, but I also think that if you are not, just as much as you need to hold each other accountable, you also need to be appreciative. And so I think that those both meetings should probably coincide. Have an appreciation meeting just as much as you have an accountability meeting.
Yep.
And in doing so, I feel as though these are things that you can adopt in both your personal relationships and your business relationship.
100%.
You got something you want to say on that or no?
Yes, because when it comes to personal and business relationships, that's how you keep people there. That's how you keep people wanting to do things for you. And not to say that you should use this to use people, but it definitely helps with the relationship, period. If you have a business partner or someone that's working for you, giving them their flowers, as you say, it lets them know that they're appreciated. And I think sometimes as women, that's something that we always want to be reminded of. Like, oh, I appreciate you because you do this and because this is just who you are. Women love that type of attention and affection, honestly. So huge hack.
Yeah. I think the other thing is it allows you to open the vents in your relationship, which is what we had originally kind of titled this, right? Opening the vents in your relationship. But once we got the submission, we decided to just kind of tailor it to that. Especially because I just did that yesterday. So that's so, and I was so, I'm telling you, dude, I was so ready to be on your side and you'd be like, she wrong. She did. And then I really had to, like, right before we started recording, remember I was like, for some reason this conversation ain't clicking to me. Yeah. And that was because I had just been guilty of that. So it's easy to see how easy it is to fall into that pattern. But again, right, just as much as I can take the blame for doing that, I have to give myself the same opposite of that, whatever that is, credit to be able to say I did come back to take that time to be like, okay, this is how I'm going to approach it. And we got to a way better solution.
Yep.
So accountability meetings, appreciation meetings, those are two of the top things that I would say, you should maybe implement in the relationship to quote unquote open the vents, because resentment is the last thing that you want to create. Is a space of someone to be able to resent you or the relationship.
Yes.
That's the closest way to end it. That's the fastest way to have someone desire to end a relationship.
And to add on to that, it gets harder to pull the person, or not even pull the person, but keep the person in the relationship, because they're going to be constantly like looking over their shoulder like, well, what else is available? Because I'm starting to resent this man. I'm starting to resent this woman. You don't want to be there no more. So I think that's the best way to keep your relationship.
Yeah. To me, I think that kind of about sums up the episode.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest with y'all, okay, this is take number 2. Maybe 3.
No, it's 3.
It's
definitely
take
3.
We tried to make this episode happen 2 other times, and we kept having special guests.
Yes, we did. But I feel like this kind of birthed a new idea.
100%, because I hadn't quite gone through that moment of realizing how often we might give each other that treatment, right? So I'm grateful for that. But because we consider y'all extended family, we are going to go ahead and put the blooper episode in this episode, and you guys will get to see a great guest appearance from Boogie Smalls.
Yes.
Our dog, our beloved animal.
Who just could not stay put.
Yeah, he just kept popping in the episode. So if you appreciate this episode, this conversation, or if you just like to see pictures and images of our dog, do us a favor, hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe for more. We are on season 2.
Yes.
And we're definitely going to keep the heat coming, and we're going to keep this thing rolling and going. It's the business of love. And I think that's it.
That's it, but I want to add one little twist in there. With season 2 here, I think it would be dope if you guys had questions that you want to submit as well.
Definitely.
I feel like this was such a good example of how we can contribute and maybe help you in some capacity. So if you do have a question similar, or just need advice, business, relationships, whatever, submit it. I think we definitely could help out.
For right now, you guys can leave a comment on the YouTube page, right? Or you can DM us at TBOL Pod on Instagram. But in a few, we will have a website that's set up for you guys to be able to interact with us.
Coming very soon.
And to be able to see some stuff and just to be able to kind of know what's going on. So be on the lookout for that. And yeah, we definitely are looking for more and more participation from you guys to make sure that we keep the conversation as relevant as possible.
Yes, super relevant.
Yeah, with that being said, enjoy these next few clips of us trying to make this episode happen and our dog interrupting us. So yeah, that's it.
All right.
It's the business of love, and we out.
Yes.
Boom. What? Come on, we only got 40 minutes.
We on borrowed time. Hey, y'all, right into the topic.
Stop. All right, what is going on, world? It is the Business of Love podcast. We are back off of our bye week. That's what I'm going to call it. We had a bye week, and a bye week was given what a bye week needed to give.
Yeah, got some stuff done.
Got a lot done. Very, very, very productive. But we are back. The Business of Love podcast. Yours truly, DJ Dark Kent, a.k.a. Kent King.
And Bria, a.k.a. Bree Woo.
And this is a little podcast where we talk about relationships.
Yes.
We talk about entrepreneurship. And we give a little bit of our advice and our experience as well. So we tell some stories, and we let you guys in on parts of our life. We invite y'all into our living room.
Literally, yeah.
And if you like it, hit the like button. And make sure you subscribe, because in YouTube land, they told us that we had to say that in order to stay here. So we did it. Now, what's next for order of business?
Order of business, of course, like you said, like, subscribe, comment, create conversation, because we love to have that engagement, especially when people give their feedback. It sometimes allow us to kind of add it into the episode and create some dialogue there. So
that's kind of how we got to this episode.
Exactly. So we got this episode.
We pretty much just going to jump right into it, baby. That was a great segue. Tonight's episode is resentment and relationships.
Well, essentially, at first you said opening the vents, and
right.
I love that title.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you want to elaborate on that a little bit, how it connects to resentment.
I think that the term opening the vents is more so about allowing a man to voice his concern without creating a space for resentment. I think it's very important that we have a communication front on both ends, right? So I can only speak from a man's perspective, which is why I said that, right? Like, let your man be able to vent, because otherwise it starts to create a space of resentment.
Yep.
And that is a very, very dangerous thing. And like you were saying before, right, when you segued in about how people actually give us some kind of like topic, somebody actually spoke to me.
Yep.
And asked me a question, which was basically like, yo, bro, sometimes my girl, I got a bit, because I read that, John, and I know. I've been through this, not my current relationship, but I've been through this. It was like basically, yo, my girl, like sometimes when she get mad, she'll give me the silent treatment. Yeah. And, you know, I'll ask what's wrong, whatever the case may be, and she will give me the silent treatment sometimes for days. And it's like, yo, what do I have to do to get that communication out of you? Mm-hmm. And so I think that for me, right, the number one thing that I would say, as far as, I don't know if I want to go and say this is a little bit of advice, but if it were me, the way in which I would react is the first thing that I would say is like, look, I'm trying my best to love you, and you getting in the way of that. Like, I'm trying to make sure that I address your needs and your emotions. But if you don't communicate with me, then you are in my way of me doing my job of loving you to the best of my ability. And oftentimes we as human beings get in our own way of things. Yep. And it sounds like this is that case and scenario. But on the other end, you have to be patient with certain people because not everybody is emotionally mature enough to know how to communicate what they're feeling.
100%. I was going to say, from a woman's perspective, I know there's tons of people that have gone through things in a relationship where they don't want to be verbal or talk about it too much. Mm-hmm. And it then creates that space that we're addressing right now. It's like, why are you giving me the silent treatment? When I ask you what's wrong, you say nothing, but obviously there's something wrong. I think a lot of the times when women or men, when they react like that, it's because they have some sort of unhealed trauma. Or maybe they, like you said, they're not emotionally mature enough to really speak on how they feel, because maybe they think you may think it's not a big deal, or you may not feel the same way they feel about the issue. So I agree with you. Definitely, let the person know, hey, you're kind of getting in the way of me trying to love you and get closer to you. But also just be understanding that there may be something deeper that hasn't been, healed yet. I think
part of what we do pretty well with our relationship is we are able to find the beauty in the difficult conversations. We have had some very difficult conversations with one another and about a various topics and issues and whatnot. So I think that we've been able to find the beauty in that because of our ability to communicate and really to be able to double down on the fact that our relationship is real and what we've built is real. And so if I had to tell you something that's difficult, I don't expect you to just take it like I'm giving you some flowers, but I do expect you to be here tomorrow. Yeah. And I think that that's one of the things that we have to make sure that we do, especially as men. We have to make sure that we reassure our women that it's going to get difficult, but I'm going to be here tomorrow. Right? And if you want me to be here tomorrow and you want us to be in a better space tomorrow, let's have the difficult conversation today. Yeah. That's the only way that we can have a more beautiful tomorrow. Yeah. And I think that doubling down on the relationship and finding the beauty in those difficult conversations has led us to, hey, this podcast, which has been very therapeutic.
It has.
For us. Because sometimes some of the things that we have to say here, y'all might not notice, but we save some of the stuff. Yeah. Look. Did y'all see how hard her head just shook?
Because there's so many things that we talk about and he'll be like, I'm not responding until the podcast. And I'm like, what? But it just makes it, like you said, therapeutic, because when we do hop on the podcast and talk about certain stuff, sometimes it's the first time I'm hearing his, opinion on it, because like he said, he's going to save it for the podcast. So it is true what you said, but it's also, it's pretty cool because it goes to show you that we want this to be a full conversation with everybody. Like, we want you guys to be involved as well and get up close, in person idea of how you feel.
100%. And so back to the topic though about, or more so the title, right? Yep. Opening the vents. So I another individual basically had spoken to me about the difficulty that he finds when it comes to voicing his complaints in the relationship, which causes him to then become complacent, right? Like there's often this stigma of like, okay, if I have a problem with something, you now have a problem that I have a problem.
Yeah.
Not like we're not even addressing the issue. We're now addressing the fact that, oh my God, it's always something with you.
Yeah, you got an attitude or you feel away.
Right. And so the problem with that is men become complacent in complaining or voicing their opinions. And that's where resentment is created, to me.
So my question would then be, as far as, resentment being created, does that mean you start to dislike or hate the person that you're in a relationship with?
No, because resentment is, so Jordan Peterson said resentment is one of two things. It is either being forced or coerced to do something that you truly feel is like either A, beneath your ability or desire, right? Oftentimes it has like, I just don't want to do these things. Or it is you not recognizing your true responsibility and therefore you need to grow up. Pardon me, not grow up. You need to grow. It's very important that I say that, not grow up, because number one, I never want people to think that this is something like a maturity thing where you have to, because we learn through this all the time. I'm still growing through this, right? I'm still getting rid of resentment towards old cousins and old friends and whatever the case may be. So it's about growth. But the other reason why it's so important to say just grow is because oftentimes we develop resentment in business relationships as well.
Yeah.
We just spoke about your previous employer.
Yep.
And some of the relationships that you had with the higher ups and how now you have resentment towards them.
Yeah.
There are certain things that I've, had to endure as an entrepreneur in trying to work with other people, and their actions have caused me to have resentment towards working with them.
Yeah. And
therefore had to sever relationships and ties. And so I think it's really important that we address the issue as far as like just saying it's about growth overall, not growing up.
Got it. Well, when it comes to back to the topic, like you said, the young man who said he was growing resentful and all of that.
Well, he didn't say he was growing resentful. Let's not even.
Well, we got a guest.
Bruh. I'm starting to resent this. It's like, nah. This that purchase I resent. Yo, get out. Boogie. After that brief intermission, sponsored by
Boogie King.
Boogie and Co. We are back talking about resentment.
Yes.
And so I think I was at the part where I was talking about it in business.
Yes. Business relationships.
Yeah. And so I think that it's very important because I just went through this, right, with a partnership where it was like we had to take some time to have a really tough conversation in order to not have a space of resentment. And I think that it was very important for us to do that because it gave the opportunity for us to gain a newfound respect for one another, right? Because we saw like what was really true in each other's hearts of just being like, look, this is really how I feel. It's a very difficult thing to say, but this is how I feel. And this is how I want to proceed from here on out. And because of that, we were able to come to a somewhat amicable dissolution agreement, right? We're still going through it, but all in all, the negotiations was pretty easy. Yep. Because we were able to have that difficult conversation. Now, the thing that I feel is the caveat is that with entrepreneurship, right, a lot of people who are entrepreneurs are really good at leading. And most of the time when you're good at leading, you don't practice empathy enough. You're not, your emotional IQ is not heightened for you to be able to lead emotionally. You can still engage with people emotionally all the time, but like you're not the one that's always calling people.
Right. You're
not the one who's like, I'm on it. I'm going to check on this person, check on that person. Me personally, I try to do that. I'm trying so hard to get better at that. Like it's one of my things that I definitely am, is engraved in my brain to be like, I have to do better at that. But I do think that it's something that oftentimes entrepreneurs fall victim to. And so later on in my Kent King on my profile, I'll actually be covering some of the ways that some of the practices that I have to practice emotional IQ, right?
Awesome.
To try to raise my emotional IQ.
That sounds
Like it could be fragile.
yes.
Boogie! Boogie, come. Go to your bed. Go in here. In here. Let's go.
Ooh, get out of here.
Look. Talk to the people.
This is the heckler interrupting our show.
Facts. You're getting out of here like security.
Get him out.